an expiring contract. But we have those paths for you. Obviously, like I talked about, what will happen on NBA draft night. The Kings, as we reported late last week, the Kings, and again, things could have changed since then, but I was listening to the Carmichael Dave show this morning, and yeah, they'd have to feel either really good about someone or get a deal that they believe has really good value. But you get to a situation like this, I think you should be looking at someone specifically and seeing if that person starts to slip and being opportunistic. We might not see something until the draft starts, because I believe that at this point in time, when you're kicking a trade or kicking a draft down the road and you're deciding you're going to give up a future pick, that's because somebody that you really like is still there, right? You're not going to go Niners and say, we're just going to trade up and see what happens. One of them will work, and then you take the one that might be in Canada this coming season, or in the Arena Football League at XFL. Then you take that guy. So you're not doing that. It's we believe that if this person is available, maybe it's Walter Clayton Jr. I've heard Walter Clayton Jr. is a name that the Kings are interested in, but he's a name a lot of people are interested in. He was the darling of the Final Four. There's always somebody interested in the darling. And when you look at the Kings of the past, is anybody scared of the Walter Clayton Jr. thing? Right? Haven't we seen this movie before with the Walter Clayton Jr. thing? Let's go get the Cinderella. Let's go get the darling of the draft. That's what I'm not saying this is the wrong thing to do, because Steph Curry was the darling of the draft. Obviously, different situation. But sometimes the darling of the draft, the darling of the March Madness, they work out. But seems like whenever the Kings take the darling of March Madness, doesn't work out in the same way. So is anybody scared about the Walter Clayton Jr.? Go get the darling of March Madness. That's the sure thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. We know that now. We've seen it. It could work, but it's not a sure thing. So don't go out there and get Walter Clayton Jr. because he was the darling of March Madness. Davion Mitchell was the darling. That whole Baylor team was the darling of March Madness. And that didn't work out, at least not in the way that a lot of people thought. And that was a lot higher of a pick than the 20th or 21st. So if you like Walter Clayton Jr., you better have liked him the whole time, right? And obviously the scouting, the scouting teams that all of these NBA teams have, you've been looking at these guys the whole time. But people like you and me that are filling out brackets, and then Florida bursts your bracket, and you say, man, what the heck is going on? Who's this Walter Clayton Jr. guy? Yeah, don't draft like that. And I would hope the Kings are not drafting like that. But if he's your guy, he's your guy. There's other names, okay? Now, one thing I wanted to get into is this Dennis Scheroder report. And the Dennis Scheroder report from Marc Stein that they are, the Kings are already being painted as a likely leading suitor for Dennis Scheroder when free agency begins. Okay, the Stein line has learned. That's what Marc Stein put out last night. Kings, oh my gosh, no. I remember seeing text, Allen, for the love of God, please stop talking about Dennis Scheroder. It wasn't me. It's not that I wanted to talk about Dennis Scheroder, but you got to be able to connect some X's and O's. Some of my stuff is sourced. Some of it is just reading tea leaves, right? Let's think about this for a second. So Walter Clayton Jr. is your guy. Let's say you're driving around in your car right now. And by the way, shout out to all the people I met yesterday. River Cats are back. They're taking on the AAA. Now they're now the Oklahoma City Comets. Okay, they didn't even have a name the last couple. They were the Oklahoma City Baseball Club. Oklahoma City Comets. So AAA for the Dodgers. So a bunch of Dodger fans in the building. Screw them. Thank you for coming out. But screw them. It was a lot of fun, and we got a lot of stuff going the rest of the week. So you're driving around, and I met some people that say they listen to the show. You know who you are. So shout out to you. You're driving around in your car, okay, and say, Walter Clayton Jr., that's my guy. I don't want Dennis Scheroder. I don't want him. Why not both? Why not both, okay? Because here's what we know. Walter Clayton Jr. is 22 years old. you have to make that jump into the NBA, right? And we all watched him, but we all know that the NBA, it ain't the G League, let alone college basketball. So Walter Clayton Jr. could be your guy. Dennis Schroder does not affect that. Tyus Jones does not affect that. The same conversation we've had with Jonathan Kuminga, a lot of Jonathan Kuminga news coming out, by the way. Things could get messy. That was the quote, according to Ramona Shelburne, if he wants to kind of gum up the Warriors' plans. But we talked about how Jonathan Kuminga, now I get it, it's a different position, but 22 years old, what the hell does Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine, and if you keep DeMar DeRozan, what the hell do they want with a 22-year-old Jonathan Kuminga? Any combination of those three. What do they want with a 22-year-old Jonathan Kuminga?
Frankly, insane.
The timelines don't add up. We're going Thanos here, Infinity Stones. The timelines don't add up. Now, let's talk about Walter Clayton Jr. Obviously, he's a point guard, and the Kings do need a point guard. But I do not see a world where the Kings say, no, we don't really have a point guard on the team. I know somebody's typing Devin Carter right now, and we will read that off in about 5 minutes. We don't have a point guard on this team, but we're going to solve that problem with a 22-year-old who has never dribbled a basketball in the NBA, and we're also going to try to sell to our fans that we are competing at a high level and trying to be successful at a high level and make the playoffs. Those things don't make sense. So when I read this Dennis Schroder news, and when I read that Tyus Jones news, unless they sign Dennis Schroder to a 3-4 year deal or Tyus Jones to a 3-4 year deal, this doesn't affect anything. You're not signing this. Look, things are different when they decide that they are going to say uncle. When the Kings decide to say uncle, then yeah, go get Walter Clayton and let that brother play 40 minutes a night. But that's not what they've told us. So because that's not what they've told us, now that we've understood that, going and getting Dennis Schroder should not annoy anyone. It should not annoy you. Let me rephrase that. It should not annoy you if you want to take a big swing, right? Or excuse me, it should annoy you if you want to take a big swing. But it should not annoy you if you are in the midst of a draft war room and you're looking at Walter Clayton and Jace Richardson. It should not annoy you. Dennis Schroder has nothing to do with those guys. Unless they sign him for even a 2-year deal is fine. 3 years, 4 years, something insane. Dennis Schroder has nothing to do with Walter Clayton Jr., any of the point guards that the Kings may want because of the timeline. Now, it should annoy you, and we'll talk about this because as of right now, Kristaps Porzingis is an Atlanta Hawk. So it should annoy you if you wanted to go get Ja Morant, if you wanted to go get Trae Young, then maybe yes, then it should annoy you. But if you're upset at the Kings about Dennis Schroder, it should not be because you believe it affects what they're going to do in the draft. Because if they like a point guard, I do not, and look, I've only talked to Scott Perry kind of in passing, social media, things like that. But I do not believe that signing Dennis Schroder is going to, and I haven't talked to BJ Armstrong. We're working on some things, by the way. I do not believe that will affect how they view this draft. Dennis Schroder, think of Dennis Schroder as Sam Darnold. Think of Dennis Schroder as whatever the hell is going on with the New York Giants. Russell Wilson and/or Jameis Winston. That's what Dennis Schroder is. That's what Tyus Jones is. I know Tyus Jones is a little younger. Like I said, if they sign him to a 3-4 year deal, then God help us, number one. And number two, yes, be very annoyed. But I don't foresee that happening. Teams have more than one point guard. The Kings don't, but most teams do. Now, when you look at other guys' ability to handle the basketball, we've gone from Malik Monk, oh, he's not a point guard, to Malik Monk, he can still handle the basketball. He can still do some things. So, yeah, maybe now you have Now you have Malik Monk. Now you have Dennis Scheroder. Now you have either Keon or Devin, maybe both of them. Yeah, you still have three guys that maybe you're hindering Keon's ability or Devin's ability to improve as a playmaker, but it kind of feels like something that we've seen before when it comes to this point guard playmaking thing. Okay? And shout out to the pitchers all over the world. And you know I'm going to bring it back to baseball. The pitchers that, man, this guy's a closer. This guy's a reliever. Let's try him as a starter. And it just doesn't hit the same. They're just better as a reliever, right? You need them to spot start every now and then. That's fine. But they're not starters, okay? And they're better served, they're best served as closers or relievers. That's what we kind of feel like we've seen here. Jordan Hicks with the Giants. They tried to start him. They tried. He's better as a reliever. Doesn't mean he stinks as a starter, but he's better as a reliever. That's what we just kind of watched with Malik Monk. And we will have plenty of time to talk about Devin Carter. We got 4 hours with you, and you're in the middle of a 30-minute set. No commercials here. We do it at the top of every hour if you're just not listening. Thank you for listening. We've talked about Devin Carter before. I'll tell you this much, and I'll be honest. I watched Devin Carter's tape after the draft because I did not think the Kings were going to draft a guard. But go watch Devin Carter's tape and tell me that he looks like a point guard. If we believe that Malik Monk is more of a point guard, and when they tried to put him in that position, it didn't work out. Obviously, Malik is older than Devin Carter, but we were from a better starting point with Malik, and they still need help. So that's my Devin Carter conversation. When it comes to Allen, we saw somebody yesterday on the Sac Chat. We'll look at the Thunder with Lou Dort and Caruso. It's different. The Thunder have Jalen Williams can handle the basketball. And he's, 6'6", whatever the hell he is. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can handle the basketball. And he's big as hell too. So you can have guards that don't handle the basketball because you're making up for it somewhere. You're making up for it somewhere. Okay, let's talk about the Celtics. Well, the Celtics, they have all these guys. Jason Tatum handles the basketball. Okay? Drew Holiday is a point guard. He is a defensive-minded point guard, but he is a point guard. So you can have Drew Holiday and Derek White and Jason Tatum all out there at the same time. It's not about Devin Carter hate. It's about roster construction. And right now, based on how the Kings are constructed, you cannot have Malik Monk, Keon Ellis, and Devin Carter, in my opinion, on that roster. It's not as bad as having, we have the conversation about DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Malik Monk. It's not as bad as having those three on the roster, but it's a similar version to that as of right now. Now, you can make moves and say, Alan, they went out and got so-and-so. Can they keep the three of them, the three amigos now, the three shooting guards now? Sure. But I'm talking about as presently constructed. That's why these conversations are being brought up. So as it pertains to the Dennis Scheroder conversation, the Tyus Jones conversation, do not be annoyed if you are big on somebody in the draft. I do not believe that the Kings are operating in the presence of mind of, now we have Dennis Scheroder, we don't need a point guard. I do not believe they're operating like that. They're operating under the guise of, like we talked about yesterday, Domantas Sabonis is nearly 30. Zach LaVine is nearly 30. Malik Monk, this is a set of timelines. So we are going to help this timeline right now. We can go get our guy of the future because he's 22 years old. By the time he's starting to hit his stride, I don't know where Domantas Sabonis is going to be. We'll talk about what Jason Anderson was on the afternoon show yesterday, and that he had more to say today as it pertains to Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan, which we know about the DeMar DeRozan stuff. So they have to start to look towards the future as well. But that does not mean that the future is now. That does not mean that the Walter Clayton Jr.'s of the world, hey, just throw them on in there. And then we're going to try to you would be pissed off. You as a fan would say, so there's a 22-year-old point guard that is legitimately going to get his first time in Vegas, and he's going to be our starting point guard in the NBA, in the Western Conference. That wouldn't jive with you. So don't be upset about Dennis Schroder or Tyus Jones. That's separate. Stopgap. Sam Darnold. Just say that's Sam Darnold. Just say that's Geno Smith. Hopefully Geno Smith in a dome because he's about to cook out there in Vegas. Stop playing with my guy. Chip Kelly, where we at? That's what we're dealing with right now. So a lot of people were upset when they saw the Dennis Scheroder news and, oh my gosh, here we go again. Well, we knew this was here we go again. We knew they weren't starting over. They told us that. Doesn't mean that they won't start over eventually with Scott Perry at the helm, but we knew they weren't starting over going into 2025, 2026. So with that being said, Dennis Schroder, Tyus Jones, makes sense. It makes sense. So